Hi, everyone. Welcome back to It's Haunted, What Now? I'm your host, Lainey. I sat down with one of my favorite podcasters. Her name is Drezfalez. And if you've listened to the Ghosted podcast, then you will know exactly who she is. She is a wonderful queen based out of Los Angeles, and her podcast is amazing. So we sat down and talked about a bunch of things related to the paranormal and ghost stories, and I think you're really going to enjoy this special bonus episode. So sit back, listen, and the audio is a little bit of a departure from what we're used to hearing on the show, but we will be back to our regular scheduled programming in the next episode. So thanks so much, you guys. I hope you enjoy this. So I would like to welcome to the show Roz from the Ghosted podcast. So Roz, tell us a little bit about yourself and the show.
Well, my name is Drezfalez, and I suppose I'm what many people refer to as a drag queen and stand-up comedian and actor, and I live in Los Angeles, California. And I have this podcast called Ghosted! Exclamation point by Drezfalez, where I interview, all kinds of my silly friends, my comedian friends, drag queens, and actors, and just, all kinds of Hollywood folk and showbiz folk that I love so much. And interesting enough, a lot of those people have had paranormal experiences of their own. So it's sort of like the old format of that TV show, Celebrity Ghost Stories, but with some drag queen commentary thrown in. So we have a good time, a fun little sense of humor to the show, but also it gets very spooky.
Mm-hmm.
And I particularly am not an expert. I know very little about the paranormal. I just love hearing about it. And as the podcast goes on, I'm sort of shaping my beliefs of what is actually happening here. And so I'm constantly learning every single day. It's leading me down this path of being like obsessed with this stuff. And especially being in quarantine, I'm just like, I'm usually such a scaredy cat, but yes. I'm like, I want to go anywhere right now. So if it's like some old haunted asylum, like sign me up. I am there. I want to go any place, and I just like am eager to get out there and do some paranormal investigating of my own. And I've just been spending my time reading books about the stuff. I just love it so much. So thanks for having me on.
For sure. I'm so excited. It's truly, truly an honor. I told you before, I love your show, and I love what you do. And you bring such a fun kind of atmosphere to something that's supposed to be really scary. So that's great, because I am the same way. I love being scared. I love learning about anything supernatural and paranormal, which is why I kind of ventured into this field, because I normally host a true crime podcast. And so I was like, I really want to do a paranormal one too. So I switched over to paranormal, and it has been so much fun. And I found your show kind of after I started listening to Ghost in the Burbs, and it was just really delightful and so funny. And I was super jealous that you had Cassandra Peterson on, and that was such a great episode, and her stories are so fantastic. So I was reading an article, several articles on you in preparation for today, and I saw that you also like some of my favorite movies. So you kind of grew up with a Catholic upbringing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how did your family feel about you watching or liking The Exorcist?
It's so weird looking back, because my family, it's hard to describe them. I mean, I'm in a relationship of the past 6 months now, and he still has not met my parents, but I spent a lot of time explaining them. And he says a lot of like, but like I thought they were like this, but they do this and they do that. And I'm like, yeah, they're very complex people, and it's weird where they're more conservative and where they're not. But one of the things that, for some weird reason, they knew that I was into spooky things, and they let me watch scary movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some like The Exorcist in particular. I think I was about 7 when I first saw it, and I do know that it was the TV edited version.
Oh, okay.
Which has very funny, the
The dubbing. Yes.
The dubbing. Oh my gosh, your mother darns socks in hell. I grew up with that version, and then I think I was probably about 13 when I saw the other version. But yeah, that one, Carrie, was one that I watched as a very young child, and I did my own parody of it called Harry.
I love that.
I saw a lot of those movies. I actually was just reflecting on, I saw the movie Scream right when it came out, which was 96. And so I think I was about 5 or 6 years old when I saw it. My older sisters and everyone, the whole family got together to rent it and watch it at home. And I was so scared. And I made my mom take me to work with her the next day because I was so afraid to be home with my sisters.
That's so cute.
But yeah, I've always been fascinated, and I'm like such a huge horror buff to this day.
Yeah, so we had the same reaction. So I grew up in a Mexican family, Mexican Catholics, which are kind of a different breed of their own from just a regular old Catholic. But my grandma was like, because I was like, oh my God, this movie is so awesome. And me and my mom both like are into horror, paranormal, ghosts, whatever. So I saw it with her first, and I was probably maybe around 12 or 13 when I first saw it. And I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is the best scary movie ever. And my grandma was like, you can't watch that in my house because the devil's going to come and you're going to be possessed by the devil. Didn't you know there were people fainting in the theaters? And I was like, oh my God, like it's not that serious. It's going to be okay. But I love that. I love that. I think that's probably kind of what lured me to it, is because I kind of knew that history. My mom had told me about it. And so I was like, dang, I really, like I said, I love being scared. So I just was like, let's see what it's like. I can't wait to be scared. And then I wasn't.
I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore, but it's just so interesting that the fear of the devil and demons that I experienced, like that still keeps me up at night.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
I love a slasher, but slashers don't really keep me up at night the way that the thought of a demon being in my bedroom does.
Yes, 100%. And plus, at least, even though you don't practice, you know how to kind of get rid of one. I think that was part of our training as a Catholic, is just to be like, this is what you do if you see a demon. Because I remember, like, I learned that in catechism. If you saw some evil spirit or something, like you were to question it with Bible verses or something, or you were to say, start praying Our Father or something like that. And I was like, dude, I got this. Even though I don't like practice or anything like that in terms of like a religion, I was like, I got this if I ever get possessed or find a demon in my house.
That's one of the realizations I came to on the podcast. A lot of my interviews, I'm figuring this stuff out as I'm speaking with people. And in a couple of conversations, I've come to that realization that, listen, if whatever your beliefs are, there seems to be energies in this world that are malicious, and for some reason they cannot stand anything to do with Christianity. They don't like it, and in fact it makes them run away.
They're like, no thank you, I gotta go.
Not for me.
The solicitation of it all, they're just like, no thank you. Did you ever see The Others, the one with Nicole Kidman?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's an interesting twist.
I've had experiences with like a child ghost, and it's kind of been freaky. And now I'm hearing, as I'm listening to more shows and stuff like that, there's this thing going around either on Reddit or in the podcast community and on Twitter that child spirits aren't really child spirits. They're like demons trying to fool you so that you feel like at ease. So how would you feel if you had a child ghost in your house?
I know,
which I think is rude, but
they say that demons do that. Like, they're sort of impressionists, and they like to, through Ouija boards or something, pretend to be a loved one, and then eventually they, you're like, oh yeah, well, if you're my grandma, then where did you hide all the money? And then all of a sudden they're like, you got me. Okay,
I'm a demon.
Yeah. An old demon. I don't necessarily know that I believe that. I bet you that there are demons that probably try it. They probably
Mm-hmm.
try to be kids, but I think that, if there can be adult ghosts, why can't there be children ghosts?
Correct. I agree. I'm like, sadly, there are children that die. And I think that especially them maybe have, unfinished business that they, or it was a traumatic death. I don't know, like whatever makes somebody a ghost. I think applies across the ages, not necessarily at adult. They're not like, oh, you're 18, you can be a ghost. Sorry, if you're under 18,
Yeah.
you cannot be a ghost. No, you
But
have to be a demon.
that's another realization I came to on the podcast, is that I think why children ghosts are so scary is because, there are some predator animals that when they're little babies, they don't know how to control their attacks. They could attack you because they don't know any better, and they sort of learn as they're older. I don't know if that's true or not, but I can understand that where a child doesn't quite know how to be a ghost. They're just sort of like
Like
just
a puppy
living
trying to
their
learn
life.
how to haunt you.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're not potty trained yet,
Right.
as ghosts. And so they're kind of, I think that maybe they push boundaries, but also, like, let's be honest, like, children are creepy.
They kind of are, yeah. And I hate that thread on Reddit where they're like, my kid said, and then they'll be like, I saw you dead or something or whatever. And I was like, oh God, no. There's this kid I used to babysit who he was like 3 or 4 at the time. And when I went to the house to go, like watch him and stuff, his mom was like, so he thinks he's like some little Indian kid from India, and he's talking about his family, and he's like naming, this kid is as white as bread. So, and he was like 4. So there's no way that he had any idea like about India or like places in India or anything like that. And he was like, my brother this, my sister that, and we were here at the market, and I miss them, and I want to go back with my family. And he then started to realize, I think, that we were kind of like either thinking he was joking or that we were a little afraid of what he was saying. And so he stopped wanting to talk about it. So we would ask him like, how's your brother? Or how's your sister? And he'd be like, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm like, oh my gosh. He knew.
But
he knew.
That gives me reason to believe in reincarnation. And, my theory for what a ghost is, I do believe that there are many ways someone can be a ghost, but I think that being a ghost isn't always a good thing. And I think that you're not able to go to the next life. And I think it's very complex, but sometimes I think it seems as if once you end this life, you go on to the next one. And sometimes, like with these children, you have memories of that last life. But other times, when you end this life, you, for whatever reason, are not able to accept it and go to the next one. I just hear so many stories that make me feel like that's the way it works.
Yeah.
But
I feel like it can't be like, one way. It has to be, there's so many other options in regards to how things become paranormal, because there's just such a wide range and we have no true understanding of it. Like, sure, we have like, parapsychologists and demonologists and stuff like that, but that's kind of very specific. You kind of find things all the time that you never knew about. Did you ever watch like MTV Fear?
Yeah.
That was my jam back in the day. And I always wanted to be on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, what would I do if I was there? So that's the thing, is like, I like being scared and you like being scared. And you mentioned too that you like, I don't want to see a ghost or anything like that. But have you changed your mind a little bit, or is that still the same, even after the show and kind of the stories you've heard?
I feel that if I'm seeking out a ghost, I want to see one. I just don't want to see a ghost hovering over my bed one night. That's what I don't want. But if I'm going ghost hunting, yeah, I want to catch something. I want to see a ghost, but it's just those experiences that happen when you're least expecting it. That's what I'm not interested in.
So when I was younger, I don't know why I've always known about ghosts, but I have. And I've had, several paranormal experiences, which has kind of led me down here, and all very like nothing creepy in terms of like, oh, I saw this or something like that. It's always been auditory type of stuff, like where I've heard knocks, or I've heard like my grandfather who passed away, like I heard his walker and him calling my name, and I was like, pretty sure he's not here anymore. So like things like that. But whenever people would pass away in my family, or if I knew them, I'd be like, listen, I love you. I'd be at the gravesite and be like, listen, I love you, but do not come to haunt me. Like, don't come over here and show me who you are. Like, it'll scare the crap out of me. I miss you and I love you, but I don't want to see you. Like, if you want to make a noise, okay, fine. Or you want to come to me in my dream, okay, fine. But do not show me who you are, or like, I don't want to see your apparition or anything like that. And that still has not changed for me.
I kind of want those experiences, but I've had those conversations with a lot of people. And actually, when I started the podcast, it was just me interviewing people that I was personally friends with. Mm-hmm. And that was my final question to them was, if you die before me, will you come visit me? When also sometimes I interview people I don't know, and they're like, of all the people I know, why would I visit this silly drag queen that I met one time? But anyway, I do think I would like that experience.
Because you said you saw your grandma, right?
One time, yes.
Yeah.
I want them to know, please don't scare me.
Yeah.
You know, like, if you love me, you are welcome to come visit me and say hi, but don't scare me. Just like in life, don't like bang on my windows in the middle of the night.
Right.
Like, if you want to come over, call me first and then come over.
Come to you in your dream and be like, tomorrow around 6, I'm probably going to stop and be an apparition. So be prepared.
Sounds great. Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, if it was planned and scheduled, I'd probably be okay with it. But oftentimes they're, surprises, really. That's kind of what I think lures people into it or makes a story so interesting, is that they're all surprises when people don't expect them. They're not like, oh, we're sitting around, unless you're like doing, I think, a Ouija board session or something. Have you used one before? You did one, didn't you, on the show?
I've done it many times. And for a long time, I owned a haunted Ouija board that like kind of creeped me out for a while. Yeah. And I made like a really lazy vow to myself that I would never use one. And then that stopped once I started doing this podcast.
Yeah, you're like, just kidding. You're like, I need content, so I'm willing to be haunted.
Yeah, we did a live show where we had one, but I didn't use it. We had audience members use it. And then I went to the Queen Mary in Long Beach, California, and I stayed in the haunted room there, and they give you a Ouija board.
Oh,
and so gosh. I was like, well, we're here. So, yeah.
Might as well.
I tried and nothing happened. So.
Yeah, I think you have to be in the right place for that in terms of like your energy or something to be open.
Yeah, definitely.
So I've obviously listened to your episodes, and I remember at the live show you did, there was the haunted doll, like the eBay haunted doll or whatever that you guys had there. But that's probably one of my biggest fears. Like, I don't have stuffed animals in my home or any type of dolls. Like, my nieces come over and I'm like, nah, bro, you can't have that in here. Sorry. I'm like terrified of them because of something that happened that I can't remember if it was a dream or like a real life experience with a doll. And after that, I told my mom, I was like, please throw this thing away. I don't want it. It came to life when I was awake, and I am scared of those now. So how do you feel about like haunted objects like that? Because that's primarily what my show's about. Is it deals with, like haunted objects. So people who, get Ouija boards, or they pick up like random rings at the antique shop. And that's another thing people don't really realize, is all of that stuff has, residual energy from whoever it was. I am always like, I don't know how you don't expect this to be haunted. If, you never know where it came from, or you never know like how long, especially like super old antique things. How do you feel like truly about the haunted dolls? Like, do you think that they truly are inhabited? Because I've seen a couple of YouTube videos of this lady who's like records her dolls and stuff, and they have a whole thing where they're alive. So do you think that that's like legit, or do you think those are more like make believe people?
No, I believe in that for sure. I don't like to think about it because I am known as the bargain bin beauty.
Yes, you are.
Drezfalez. I shop almost exclusively secondhand, and everything I own has once been owned by somebody, and who knows, maybe they died using it or wearing it or whatever. So I hate thinking about that, but I also buy a lot of really ugly, tacky things
Mm-hmm.
in my home. And so I feel like most of the things I own, a ghost would not want to be a part of. They're
They're
like,
like, thank you
okay,
for taking that. I gotta go.
thank you. Yeah. I definitely think it's real. I think that there are a lot of people that, of all the scams, they figured that that would be the one for them
Mm-hmm.
on eBay.
eBay.
I think it's hilarious. I love the backstories that these
Yes,
people
they're
come
pretty
up with.
hilarious.
And frankly, I choose to believe a lot of things, but a lot of those I do not believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe in Annabelle. I believe in lots of these objects, and a lot of them seem to be very powerful and very scary.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've told it quite a few times, the story of my haunted Ouija board experience. I told it on the first episode of my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And that experience, which ended up not being, I only had one really spooky experience connected to that, but it was basically just, a Ouija board that I bought from a Goodwill. And then as soon as I bought it, weird little things started happening around the house. And
Mm.
that is something I would love to never experience again. It could have been way worse. It wasn't too bad. But I think about the fact that that could happen a lot. And especially because I have an addiction to flea markets and
Yeah.
antique stores. And I just love that stuff. And so even in quarantine, I've like bought a number of like little things on eBay or Etsy or whatever. They're
Mm-hmm.
like old antique things. And why are you
No, it's
reminding me
so
of this?
great. You know what? I'm the same way. I love my mom's like super into the metaphysical and she's all about like, oh, things carry energy or whatever. And I literally just sage everything that I get. And that, like clears that energy. Cause I always say, like, thank you for this gift, I guess, if you will. And that I don't need the energy attached to this, that I want my own energy attached to it. And so I kind of release that energy. So if you sage or don't, you should. But if you have any sage, that's what you can do with your items. My mom says to always do it when there's a new moon. And then whenever you buy anything that's secondhand or, even if it's a gift and stuff like that. So I make it a habit. I truly believe that like everybody that I've ever met, is like, oh, you're an empath, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, you really have to protect your energy. And so that's kind of the mindset I always have, especially when I meet new people, because I'm an introvert anyway. So meeting people just like drains me most of the time. It's really important to me to kind of protect myself. So that means also protecting, the place that I come home to relax to and feel safe in. So yeah, everything gets saged.
Yeah, I need to do that more. I lived a majorly chaotic teens and early 20s,
Mm-hmm.
and then I've like really cleaned up my act, but I feel like there's a part of me that's just like I want to live on the edge but not too crazy. Like that's how I've kind of always been.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's like a part of me with like these objects where I'm like I'm going to roll the dice. Maybe I'll get possessed, maybe I won't.
Oh my
But
God.
you're right, it's irresponsible. I
It
should
is.
probably I should
It really
definitely.
is. You won't feel great once you are possessed, I promise you. And you'll end
Oh
up on,
no.
like Zach Bagan's show or something, trying to get you
No, they're gonna yell at
exercised.
me.
He will. He'll yell at you. And he'll wear those glasses and he means business when he's wearing them, so. Is there a subject you won't touch in terms of like creepy things on your show?
I like to stay in. I mean, is there a term for what I like to talk about, like in terms of paranormal? Like, I like to not necessarily get into cryptids or UFOs,
Oh, yeah. I don't think that
um,
that's paranormal, really. I don't know.
but like the stuff that I like to talk about is, ghosts,
Mm-hmm.
psychic, poltergeists,
Yeah. Oh my God. I
demons.
wish there were more poltergeist stories like that happened in this time frame.
Yeah,
Sorry for the
but
person involved, but I need some entertainment.
I know, I find them so fascinating.
They really are.
Uh, So yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'd like to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of that world, I mean, no, there's not really anything that I wouldn't talk about.
Have you heard of black-eyed kids?
Yeah, I've talked about that before.
Mm.
I haven't talked to anyone that has encountered them, but
Yeah. I get a couple of stories submitted. I am never going to read a Black-Eyed Kid story on my show ever in my life.
Why is that?
I'm so terrified of them. Like, I was listening to the Astonishing Legends, like, coverage of them, and I could not finish the episode because I was like, dude, I'm going to see these children. Like, they're just going to come up to my door and be like, can I come in? And of course, I would not let you in. I would just be like, no. But now that you have, like, you know, this technology of, like, your Ring doorbells and stuff like that, like, you can watch them. But I was like, there's no way. Once I see them and their eyes turn black and stuff, I'm done for. Like, I'm done. So I just don't want to invite that into my sphere, you know? Those are the things I don't know, like the Dybbuk box, you know, like you can't really get rid of energy like that, I feel. So since those are kind of in the realm of like what I think would be cryptids, you know, because there's no true origin to them, right? They're not like past ghost kids or something who are coming to haunt you. Like they have some nefarious thing about them. So
Right.
I couldn't get rid of you, and I don't know anybody who could. So things like that, I'm like, no, I don't want to invite you.
Move to LA because in LA, nobody ever even knows their neighbors. Like nobody ever knocks on your door. And so if somebody does, you know that something's wrong.
You're
so
like, what are you doing here? Yes, I'll be like, are you a Black-Eyed Kid? Get out of here. And they'll be like, oh, it's that crazy lady in apartment B. Are you ever thinking about going on YouTube or anything? I know you have a channel, but you don't post anything like ghost related or anything like that. So are you thinking about maybe moving and doing doing both?
Yeah, I definitely have considered. I mean, especially depending on how long until I can be out
in studio.
Well, but also like being so much of my living and not just financially, but just what keeps me sane is performing in front of people. So that's always my preferred way of working is with audiences. But if, depending on how much longer that is, I have certainly been working on some ideas for creating things that could be seen on YouTube or various platforms.
Yeah.
I always want to film the interviews that I do. So maybe eventually we'll do that.
Yeah, that would be dope. I think that would be so cool to kind of see that. I mean, because I watch both. Like I listen to podcasts and I watch YouTube a lot. I would be down for that, obviously. I mean, don't make it for me, but I'm just saying, like, if you did, just shout me out every show and be like, lady, thank you so much. And I'm just kidding.
I definitely have thought about maybe doing a live show similar to the ones that I've done in person in Los Angeles.
I could finally see one.
Yeah, like quarantine edition.
Love it.
I've considered it. I love being live in a room. Like, okay, I come from theater and comedy venues, and in those places, they're live, and you sort of let your mind flow and you say all kinds of things, but it's not recorded.
Right.
And so when I think of being live and then it's recorded or people can record on their own, I don't love that format because who knows what will come out of my mouth. So I'm always kind of hesitant. I actually hosted a show that through a platform that I think might be associated with Twitch. It was called Live Me.
Oh, yeah. I think,
I was hosting a show for like a month a couple years ago at their studio. It was a really, really cool, fun experience, but it made me so nervous, the thought of it being live like that, because so many people would be tuning in, and it just makes me think about people that used to do like actual live television, like how scary that is.
No, you would be great. I think you are severely underestimating your talent in that arena here. Because, I mean, we don't have a format with how we're discussing things, and you're very engaging and awesome. So I think that would be the case as well for any type of video live stream that you would do. Roz, thank you so much again for being on the show with me. I really, really, really appreciate it. It is truly an honor. And where can people find you or the show and kind of tell us what's going on with you? I know you're in quarantine, but, if there's any way that we can support you, please let us know.
Thank you. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's so nice to talk to humans. So I appreciate it. Well, you could listen to Ghosted! Exclamation point by Roz Drezfalez, which we post new episodes every Thursday. And I've honestly been having a great time interviewing people from home. And so we've had a lot of great recent episodes. We had Jack Osborne, we had Busy Phillips, Wendy McClendon Covey, Karen Kilgariff, all in quarantine. We've had these episodes, and I have some great ones coming up that I can't wait for. So yeah, you can listen to that. An interesting mix of listeners sharing stories as well as celebrities and psychics and quote unquote experts. So yeah, you can find that everywhere you get podcasts. And if you want to follow me on social media, I'm at Roz Drezfalez. All Z's.
Well, that does it for this episode. If you'd like to submit your own spooky tale to be read on the show, head to hauntedpod.com and click on the link to submit your story. You can also email me at hauntedpod@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to leave a positive review on Apple Podcast or your podcast player of choice. It really does help us out. You can find us on Twitter at podcast_haunted, Instagram at It's Haunted What Now, or at hauntedpod.com. The official composer and creepy tune creator for the show is Nico at We Talk of Dreams. Check him out on Twitter at We Talk of Dreams or wetalkofdreams.com. Audio engineering is provided by the talented and yet spooky Ches from Gray Multimedia. Until next time. Did you hear that?